His sleep-talking girlfriend would answer one question every night in her sleep. She even says she knows the horrifying way that their lives will end. Back when he met his girlfriend, he thought she was perfect. Their relationship moved quickly and he moved into her place. Everything about her seemed normal. That was until the first night that they stayed together, when he discovered her horrifying secret. He was laying in bed next to her reading on his phone when she rolled over and looked at him dead in the eye and said, "Ask me a question." He chuckled, thinking it was just a cute exchange, but she reached out and squeezed his arm. He winced and said, "Hey, that hurts." But she didn't let go. Okay, do you like sleeping together?" he asked. "Yes," she said, rolling back over to go to sleep. It was such a surreal experience and so random. Obviously, he brought it up to her the following day, but she swore that she didn't remember anything. The next night, the same thing happened again. He thought she was asleep, and then all of a sudden she rolled over, looked him right in his eyes and said, "Ask me a question." "Do I have to?" he asked tiredly. "Yes." She then rolled back over. That must have done the trick and counted as the question. "Hey, are you just messing with me?" "Only one question per night," she said sternly. He was afraid to even attempt another question. Going forward, every night she would roll over and prompt him, and each night he would offer some innocent inquiry just to satisfy her. He would ask if she enjoyed the restaurant that they went to that evening, small things like that. But there was one night where he fell asleep before her. He woke up in the middle of the night with her hand gripping his arm, asking for another question. "Not tonight," he said. "Just go back to sleep." "You have to ask a question," she said. Frustrated, he tried to shut her down with an absurd question. "Fine, when will I pass away?" "After me," she said as she rolled away as he then sat up. "What did you say?" he asked angrily. "One question," she replied. "No, not tonight. You need to tell me what is going on. Why are you doing this to me?" She didn't respond. He then became so frustrated he grabbed his things and went back to his apartment. He barely got any sleep that night. The next morning she called him, asking where he'd gone. He tried to explain to her what had happened. "This has to stop. I don't really even know what it is, but it has to stop. I'm happy with you, but I think I'm beginning to lose my mind." "I'm scared," she said. That night, they decided to sleep apart. He was exhausted and hadn't realized the full extent of the stress he had been under. Shortly after going to bed, he was woken up suddenly in the middle of the night. The clock read 3:22 a.m., but he just laid there feeling guilty over the whole situation. Maybe he had overreacted? He grabbed his phone to send her a text, but she had already sent him one saying, "Ask me a question," time-stamped at 3:21 a.m. The text must have been what woke him up. He barely had any time to process what he had just seen before his phone started ringing. It was her, and there was no chance he was about to answer that phone. He turned off his phone and struggled to try and go back to sleep. Then, 20 or so minutes later, he heard a knock at his door. He knew it was her, and his fear grew as he walked to the front door and looked through the people. There she was, beautiful as usual, but ghostly, standing in the hallway. He didn't open the door, but decided to try his luck. "How can I make this stop?" he asked as loudly as he could. "You can't," she said. He then looked back out the people, and she was gone. The next day, she asked him how his night was, and he lied, telling her that everything was fine. In her own words, the night before, she said he couldn't stop it, but he could at least try to understand it. The next few weeks, he barely slept. He tried so many different questions, but none of the answers were comforting. "Why can't I stop it?" She said it was inevitable. "Have you done this to anyone else?" She said no. "Do you want to hurt me?" She again said no. No questions seemed to help. Exhausted, one night after weeks of that, he tried something different, something more specific. "What is the number of days exactly that we will be in a romantic relationship after today?" 112, she said. "What is the reason our romantic relationship ends?" "I pass away," she said. Each night that went by, he dug a little deeper. "Why will you pass away?" "Starvation." "Why will I pass away?" "Electrocution." "Where will you pass away?" "Nearby." "Can I keep you from losing your life?" "Yes." "How can I stop you from losing your life?" "Don't do it." Her words sent him into a panic. He now understood what she was trying to tell him, but for all his exhaustion and despair, her answers were always just a little too vague. After months of sleep deprivation, his mind had fallen on an idea, and although it filled him with shame, he couldn't get it out of his mind. A sense of clarity came over him once he accepted it, and asked her his next question. "Where Could I hide your body so that no one finds it? The cellar under your house. Then night came, and they sat in front of the fireplace, her head resting on his shoulder as they both fought off the sleep. She couldn't see him, but he was crying, hoping that she wouldn't fall asleep, so he could just stay in that moment. I'm sorry, she said while finally nodding off. It's okay. We're gonna figure this out, he said in a sleep-deprived daze. But it was too late. She was asleep. He lifted her up, carried her slowly into the basement, and laid her down on the floor. A moment later, she awoke, looked him dead in the eye, and said, "Ask me a question." At this point, he could barely keep his own eyes open, but the person in front of him felt like someone completely different than the woman he knew. He started climbing back up the stairs, each step bringing him closer to a great sleep that he would finally get after months of agony. He shut the door behind him, securing it with a padlock before asking her one final question. Will she know that I loved her? And behind the locked basement door, he could hear her answer, yes.